Dweller of the Dark. We are a channel honoring the yellowed and blackened bones of many prominent authors. We'll be digging up several obscure, strange, and forgotten authors who influenced many of the great horror, science fiction, and fantasy writers today. Comment below if you like. If you have authors that you'd like to see recognized, list them in the comments or contact our author page. Subscribe for more tales of the horrifying, obscure, strange, and forgotten. We'll have quite a collection, climbing out of the tombs. If you like any of our tales, ring the bell and crush the like button below. Authors, always looking for fresh blood. Subscribe and contact us for more information. Check out our other stories on YouTube and our websites. YouTube, Dweller of the Dark. Our official website, dwellerofthedark.com. You can find us on Facebook at Jeffrey LeBlanc Horror Writer. Find our books on Amazon and Kindle. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram, Dweller of the Dark. Support us on Patreon and Bandcamp. Children of Horror. Follow me as we cross the ghoul-guarded gateways, the labyrinth of the lost, and the decrepit crypt into that cherished abyss that is moonlight, swamp, and darkest night. Forever are we outsiders to this world and the coil that is man. And for that, relish in the strange, the grotesque, and the unnerving as we push ever farther without torch, flashlight, or candle into shadowed waterways, fog-fitted bayous, and amongst 500-year-old moss-covered oaks. These truly are our home. Our name is Legion, horror fans, for we are many. My Legion walk the cobweb cyclopean stairs, climb the bat-filled bell tower on the expanse of endless night wind, and fly through mist into ancient cypress as we learn the mysteries of creatures in the dark. I promise, as we splash and lumber through the darkness, to protect you from the ghastly ghouls within. Well, maybe. Ice in the Veins is a new story written by me up on Mount Bluff in Tennessee on January 10th, 2020. It's set to be published in a new collection called These Hallowed Horrors. But we may add some bite and make this one a novel. Our story focuses on Fabrice Fauché and a series of strange occurrences at the Marceau plantation during an ice storm. Can Fabrice and his employer, Jacques Marceau, find what's attacking Jacques' wife, Rosalie? Or will they all be left out in the cold? Ice in the Veins by Jeffrey LeBlanc. December 7th, 1892. In a remote cabin on Mount Bluff, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. 17:30 p.m. Just before dusk. Snow is falling in drifts around my cabin on the mountain. The blue spruce and pine twist in the blizzard winds as the snow accumulates on their branches in heavy drifts. I know it'll be a long winter. As I wait to freeze, I don't remember much these days as I am old. But I do remember the bite of that ice storm in 1866. And the blood. How I remember the blood. Sadly, I recall the night those beasts unleashed carnage, a massacre, which lasted until the first light of wintry dawn. What I'd forgotten, I remember now, reflecting on my journal of the events. December 7th, 1866. The Marigny, New Orleans, Louisiana. Marceau Plantation. Chamber of Mademoiselle Rosalie Marceau. 10 a.m. In the early autumn of the year 1866, my employer's wife, Mademoiselle Rosalie Marceau, woke in the morning to a sense of chilled lethargy. Minutes ticked away as she lay still as a corpse on her back, her sunken eyes staring upward, unable to move. She'd say to my wife later that she felt drained of energy, of life. Rosalie swore to my Annette that even her arms and legs carried the weight of lead. She even noticed from the corner of her paralyzed eyes a slinking shadow faded out of her window as the sun rose. Rosalie thought then, I'm coming down with a cold, with all this wet weather. Jacques must examine me. He'll know what to do. It was then she noted the coppery smell of something. She remembered it took a great effort just to sit up. She sighed twice, drew in a weak gasp, and tried a third time to sit up on her elbows. For some reason in the dark, her arms and elbows were stuck to the sheet. Rosalie noted her night clothes disheveled. To her shock and great shame, the nightdress slid, rustling to her waist. How on earth had the clothing come unfastened? She wondered, looking down at herself in the pitch of the room. Rosalie in that moment felt a sting at first and a stiffness to the left side of her neck. She touched a sticky gash with her fingertips, and in the scant light of early morning saw the shimmer of blood. Mademoiselle Marceau screamed. Further panicked by the more she saw, Rosalie Marceau began to screech and shrill in unbridled terror. December 7th, 1866. Marceau Plantation. Kitchen area with Monsieur Jacques Marceau, proprietor. 10:20 a.m. I heard those screams. I remember them, even now. They came as the first flakes of ice pelted the oaks of the plantation. I was drinking a warm cup of café au lait in our breakfast room with Monsieur Jacques Marceau when we heard the scream. We both looked up, startled. As I spilled my coffee, Jacques dropped a book he was reading by Percy Bysshe Shelley, or was it Byron? I can't recall. In an instant, he had pushed his chair back, slung his coffee on the table, and was running for the white marble hallway. Jacques dashed across its breadth and mounted the winding staircase 2 steps at a time. December 7th, 1866. Marceau Plantation. Mademoiselle Rosalie Marceau's chambers. 10:35 a.m. First sign of attack. 2. Mademoiselle Marceau. Jacques found Mademoiselle Marceau hysterical, hunched over in fitful gasp on the edge of her bed. She was looking down at her hands, shoulders, and throat covered in horrific blood. Across the heave of her chest, there was whiteness, and smears of tarnished blood lay drying. Monsieur Morceau dismissed my wife, Rosalie's personal maid, from the room immediately. My Annette, terrified by the sight of the attack to Rosalie, gladly left. She did tell me. I couldn't comprehend, Fabrice. My mouth, my legs were locked in utter horror. There I was, in the open doorway, gaping as a fool at my mistress. Then Monsieur Morceau pushed me out and closed the door. I heard him shuffling and go to his wife. Need to pause a minute before I continue. I can barely see Bluff Mountain now. The snow is really starting to fall. There's shadows moving between the hickory and blue spruce, though. I better hurry and tell you the rest. They'll be here soon. Oh, Jacques! Rosalie had gasped. Come here, darling. Jacques moved her blood-soaked pillow and helped Rosalie lie back across the blood-stained sheets. Desperately, she pleaded. What has happened to me, Jacques? Why am I like this? Calm down, Rosalie. No need to excite yourself. His keen eye examined closely the hands, the arms, shoulders, and then the neck. The gash made Jacques gasp and turn away in shock. Then he turned back to examine closely, moving her jaw and head to the side. He stared, fear-struck, at the razor lancinations of her neck, the dried stream of clotted blood caked downward from them. Right on my throat. Voice sounding more like the wings of grasshoppers scratching in a summer storm. I need water. My throat burns like fire. Rosalie rasped. I'll get the water. Your neck has a get. Monsieur. Jacques Morceau paused for the right words here. He didn't want to frighten his wife. He knew exactly what it was. Eyes widened in terror. Rosalie's pale throat under the blood-stained skin went into spasm. Her voice shook in palpable growing dread. Mademoiselle Morceau yelled, Mon Dieu! Mon Dieu, Jacques! Again. No need to worry, Rosalie. Steady yourself, dear. He tried in vain to calm his own fears. Jacques Morceau moved across the room in a controlled walk. Didn't want Rosalie to see any panic in him. He moved to an ornate wash basin. It was empty. He grunted in slight displeasure and called to Annette to refill the basin. Once filled, he dipped a clean washcloth into the cool water. Jacques returned to his wife and washed away cakes of congealed blood. He inspected the wound with a surgeon's eye. He'd done enough assistance to the doctors back in the Civil War as a cavalryman. He knew the difference between a knife cut, bullet wound, and a dog bite. Cleaned of the congealed blood, the wounds were clearly visible now. Incised punctures over the jugular. Grimacing, Jacques hesitantly touched the ragged, inflamed tissue in which they lay. Rosalie screamed in pain. then pulled her neck away quickly and trembled. "Hey, come. For me now." Each word Rosalie muttered as a woman going to the gallows, resigned to death, or worse. Nonsense. There are no such things as vin. Jacques had almost said it. He bit his tongue not to say the word and opened Pandora's box. He noted the pitch in his tone had went to a growl. Then he said in a steeled voice, "We will not fall prey to this fantasy, nor will we ever succumb immediately to superstition. Do you hear? There are any number of logical reasons for no one has survived its attack. You know I will die tonight." Rosalie responded through her sobs. "Bonjour." Jacques Morceau grabbed Rosalie's bare white shoulders and shook his wife violently. "Rosalie, have you heard me?" She nodded and stared at Jacques with dead, vacant eyes. "You almost said the word. I know. You know what it is," she said. "I know you believe it." "No, I don't believe whatever it is you believe. And I say childishly what you believe it is." But the words came out chopped and garbled, or so swallowed. The bitter chicory residue from his earlier coffee, like acid, left in his mouth. There is an appearance of punctures, jagged punctures, most likely from some rat. Jacques Morceau continued, "But I promise we shall not ignore the possibility. Therefore I'll be dead by tonight." Again Rosalie responded with the grave tone. "Stop this foolish madness, Rosalie." Jacques Morceau took his wife's left hand and wrenched it up to his heart. "Nothing will ever take you from me," he commanded. December 7th, 1866. Narrated, New Orleans, Louisiana. Carriage to Broussard Grocery Store. 12 p.m. Marceau Plantation supplies and provisions. Narrated was the oldest portion of New Orleans back in the day. It held rectangular white shotgun houses, dozens of muddy, trash-filled streets piled with horse dung, card games, and all virtue and vice to make even Lord Byron blush. A few hundred people in that district, all working for or serving Monsieur and Mademoiselle Morceau's Marigny, a place where all business ran to and from the Marceau Plantation, situated on Marceau's large expanse of property near the Mississippi River. There, along the district's coast, Marceau housed a warehouse for his fleet of cargo ships, land that extended to his fleet of vessels on the mighty Mississippi. In describing the atmosphere of the Marigny, all I could say is it's a secretive, winding, dark place. It was a community of scoundrels and scallywags. It was also the home of sorcerers, witches, and all manner of voodoo practitioners in the dark arts. The latter had carried the dark mysticism of voodoo from the Caribbean on into the secluded alleyways everywhere in the city. The district also fueled the fear of trolls and fame by the Irish, German, and Scottish immigrants that sailed into port. And of course, other supernatural mythologies flourished along its banks. A dark, secretive, deadly place was the Marigny. It was full of all manner of dark and dangerous traditions. People, hearing the screech of an owl, saw it as an ominous sign of doom and would cross themselves without a thought. A murder of crows or a flock of bats garnered the same genuflection. A person with a birthmark could be murdered for being possessed. And recently, with the vampire murders, adults and children would gather garlic buds as others gathered flowers, bringing them home for the windows. The stench of unnatural death held sway here too. Recently, on every door, there was a painted cross. At every throat, a saint's medal and a crucifix. The pandemic of panic was as lethal with the superstitions of the vampire as was the panic of yellow fever or other disease outbreaks in the closely housed district. The stench of the vampire was always shadowing the Marigny. It was the smell of sulfur and brimstone that churned the stomach. It was the scene of swarming black flies, the sounds of squishing worms, squirming maggots, and finally, the nauseating scent of rotting flesh. Decayed and desecrated human flesh littered streets on some nights. Bodies piled or found in deserted alleys. Some corpses were discovered hanging from abandoned roofs or floating from sewers in the city care forgot, New Orleans. The only thing that equaled to this unnatural trouble to Jacques Morceau was the chicanery from charlatans professing cures to rid these beasts. They'd sell all manner of fake charms, precognition cards of the voodoo loas, and even witches' spells against the loup-garou. Morceau thought about all these things as he bolted shut the green storm doors of Rosalie's chamber. He laughed a minute at the latter. Then Jacques stared off to the molten gold shimmers of the last hours of light on the Mississippi River. Dusk would be here soon, bringing in the silver fog. December 7th, 1866. Morceau Plantation. Monsieur Jacques Morceau's office. Afternoon meeting staff. 1300 p.m. Soon, darkness would blanket the city. Soon, the residents of the Marigny would be barricaded in their cross-laden shotgun houses that reeked of panicked sweat and garlic. These servants, with their superstitions, all knew in their bones and in their souls what was ravaging Rosalie. Of that, Jacques was 100% certain. Already it had started. The stable boy had run off. The cook, too. And Monsieur Morceau was waiting for me and Annette to request discharge, too. But, of course we didn't. I didn't understand my wife's logic then. It made no sense at the time why she agreed to stay. She was the timid mouse, you see. My Annette, she ran from the things in the dark. She always shied from things that fluttered in the night. This recent preternatural happening, most assuredly, in my mind, would make her flee in haste. Alas, we stayed. But I guess people change sometimes in a marriage. My timid mouse is no exception. She had become a brave hawk. A hawk who seemed unthwarted by the whispers of darkest danger. As for the rest, Jacques had a powerful brute named Atlas Morange. Atlas instituted a surefire plan to get all the staff to stay. No one would receive their wages if they left, and worse, Atlas offered to hobble and cripple anyone who tried. However, as the night would later wear on, and screams of death were heard, even that failed. No rational mind could continue to reason when beholden to the terror that was vampire. December 7, 1866. Marceau Plantation. Chamber of Rosalie Marceau. Inspection of room and plantation. 1400 p.m. Everything Jacques Marceau saw and analyzed leaned to the lore of the fiend. The evidence, blood, the ripped throat, lack of any sign of entry into the room. In fact, that very morning, he scoured the place looking for anything but signs of vampirism. Jacques had supervised and oversaw the order of Rosalie's room stripped to the bare walls. They peeled back wallpaper and checked vents for rodents, snakes, or venomous insects. As the servants worked, Marceau even smelled their fear by the garlic and holy oils they wore doing the task. He felt their growing dread in whispered conversations of the task. He saw the terror of the vampire and the servants as they moved hastily in the dark cellar or between wall crawl spaces, looking for anything but the undead. Each servant moved about the room, tiptoeing as if on eggshells. Further fears were seen in wide eyes, more white than their various colored pupils, fingers twitching constantly to their totems of garlic and crosses. Even I knew, with my brethren of servitude, that no snake, no rat, no rodent, or insect of any kind would be found. And somewhere in the superstitious part of his brain, Marceau had known it too. Jacques waged an internal war within himself, logical versus illogical. Monsieur Marceau lashed out at us for our superstitions and well-founded fear and timidity, thus succeeding only in heightening our horrors further. Marceau Plantation. Rosalie Marceau's chamber. 17:30 p.m. Dusk. One more perimeter walk with me. One more check of all plantation windows. Then Marceau turned from the last locked window with a sneering smile. All safe, my love, as I promised, chimed Jacques Marceau. Then he continued, no creature alive will ever enter this room tonight or leave it. He caught himself immediately, hearing Rosalie's rapid, heavy breathing, seeing the flare of her nostrils and the reignited torches of terror in her eyes. Nothing at all will enter or leave, he amended. Rosalie recited the Lord's Prayer and Rosary in French. After a while, as darkness ever creeped into the house, She lay transfixed on her bed. In her pale left hand, at her breast, she tightened her grip over a worn silver cross. It was the same cross Marceau had given her earlier to alleviate Rosalie's growing dread. A plain silver cross, and not the emerald and ruby stone one he'd given her on their wedding day 2 years ago. How disappointing, yet so typical of her Acadian village background. That unfounded superstition ruled her life. It was now, in this moment of impending dread, Rosalie reached for the crutch of Catholicism and sought benevolent protection from the unadorned cross of her church. Such a foolish, stupid child. In a chuckle, looking at the cross, Monsieur Marceau said, "Why wear such a gaudy trinket? You know, you don't need it now, Rosalie." And Marceau went on, "Tonight, we have fortified the plantation from inside and out. You will be safe." Rosalie reacted spasmodically to his words. Both hands tightened as she turned from him, protecting her crucifix. "As usual, you misunderstand, Rosalie. Go on. Wear your divine protector of the soul. Wear it to the end of your life, if you will. Which won't be tonight," he said. "My intention and my words were only that throughout this, I'll be at your side all night and the duration." Cautiously, she said, "You'll be here with me? You promise, Jacques, to stay with me?" "Of course." Marceau sat on the bed and held her hand. "I'll never leave your side. Nothing can make me leave," he promised. An hour after dusk, the moon rose with its nyctaloptic eye and hung leprous and gibbous. As the moon made its ascent, Rosalie abruptly fell off to sleep. Marceau, confident in his assertions and safeguards, placed a chair beside the bed and seated himself reading Shelley. Removing his reading glasses, he strained his eyes to the lamplight and the shadows in the room. Then he coughed to cause any movement in the shadows. Finally, after massaging his temples and cleaning his glasses, he placed his glasses across the bridge of his nose with the thumb and forefinger of his left hand and hooked them around his ears. Marceau Plantation, Rosalie Marceau's chamber, 1900 p.m. Monsieur Jacques Marceau watched, lamplight flickering across Rosalie in her sleep. The light continued shading her in a prism of wondrous fluorescent crimson, violet, and emerald verdant light. It was in that moment he sighed, watching her. How the light accentuated every beautiful, distinct feature of his Rosalie. Vampires. Such rubbish. Marceau drew under his breath. How foolish a notion in this enlightened age of science and advancement in disease. Humans always want their boogeymen and superstitions, he whispered to himself. Marceau Plantation, Rosalie Marceau's chambers, 2000 p.m. Fabrice Fauché, summoned to Mademoiselle Rosalie Marceau's chambers. I was summoned to Mademoiselle Marceau's room later in the evening. Monsieur Marceau had been nodding when Atlas pounded on the door and requested entry. Awakened muttering, Jacques motioned with his hand for me to enter and sit next to him. I saw his hands twitch as he put away the book. Rosalie was in her bed with the lamp drawn low to let her sleep. Marceau and the room had different smells. Marceau strongly reeked of a familiar smell to me: deceit. A silver tray of coffee had been placed on a table by Annette. As I sat, she winked at me and then hurried out the door while Atlas stayed behind. I felt nervousness sitting with our benefactor. I don't know why my heart had taken to pounding with fear either. And when did Annette blink? Maybe my concern had centered on not only the smell of Jacques, but his irritated voice, especially as he whispered to Atlas as I came in swirling from the darkness. Atlas, stay a little longer, he had commanded. Then to me, Fabrice, come sit with me. 2 pairs of eyes are better than one to protect Rosalie. I was offered coffee and encouraged to drink. It's a rare Arabian recipe I learned in Saudi Arabia. You have to add just the right cardamom and date sugar. Thank you. It's quite good, I said truthfully. For a moment, he looked on, confused, towards the now locked windows. Monsieur Marceau, a puzzled Atlas asked, are you okay? Is there something troubling you? My reply. His eyes caught flame. That scent I picked up on Jacques before was stronger. No worries, Fabrice and Atlas. But, Atlas, I just need to have our chat with our dear friend Fabrice Fauché. Fabrice, we need to discuss your promotion. It's one of my best employees. I think it's time. He shook my hand as he said this. I shook his hand back. Maybe my instincts had been awry. Thank you, sir. Annette and I greatly appreciate it. Oh, dear Lord, Atlas! Jacques cried suddenly. He and Atlas lunged for the bed, examining Rosalie as I stood, stunned. Marceau Plantation, Rosalie Marceau's chambers, 20:45 p.m. Time of witnessed death by staff reports. No living staff to verify. Blood sprayed her face, soaked the mattress, and pooled in crimson ribbons on the floor. Rosalie's throat had been ripped wider, and the nightdress had been torn away again. Both men gasped at the waxen white face. Rosalie was dead. Staff had rushed in hearing the excitement. Many ran away in tears. Atlas shrugged, shook his head, and swore. I told you, barred doors and boarded windows would not stop this creature, sir, he said. Atlas Morange moved his frame, tall and massive, beside the lamp table. He somberly took out of his leather duster a wooden hammer, his bowie knife, and a large stake. Now, you must be strong. For Mademoiselle, sir. You must release her. Jacques. Atlas had never called Monsieur by his first name in front of me before, but I reckon this was an emotional moment for either man. Suddenly, I was hearing the discussion through a fog, each word underwater as they continued. I shook my head to clear it. Jacques continued. But how did it do this? We had guards. We had the garlic wreaths. She wore the crucifix. My eyes were going out of focus and clouded for some reason, but I managed to see Jacques' tears stream from his watered eyes as he pointed and pleaded. Atlas, very solemnly, fog, sir. It was the fog. Vampire has the power to make itself a vapor which can pass through any opening, however small, he explained. Then he took a deep breath and sighed, looking out in the darkness. Look, Atlas. Look, Fabrice. The cross is still around her neck, cried Marceau. Nothing or no one disturbed her cross, yet her blood pours everywhere. He moved around to both sides of the bed, pulling away sheets. Oh, I see. The blood covered its protective powers. This Jacques said in a saddened, disgusted voice. I was swooning, trying to get up, but I couldn't. My chair seemed fastened to me. Unseen hands pushed me down and made me stay. My mind and eyes no longer had clarity in thoughts or images. Were you with her the whole time, Monsieur? Atlas asked, as more of a crowd gathered outside the room. For even as mist, you surely would have heard it do this. This I cannot understand. Atlas added grimly, I do not know why, even covered in her blood, that Rosalie's cross didn't protect her. I was with her, well, until I went to the bathroom for just a moment and left Fabrice here with her. Why did I see nothing? I couldn't counter his lie. My mouth and my speech no longer worked. You were hypnotically attacked by its demonic presence. Its power to suggest overpowered your will and controlled you. But it would have to be close. Atlas looked on me as other servants came to the room and saw the horror of Rosalie. Marceau Plantation. Rosalie Marceau's chambers, 21:20 p.m. Report of apprehension of Fabrice Fauché as suspect, not taken into police custody. No police in Marigny to verify reporting. Missing or deceased. Then Atlas scrutinized me closer as he said, count yourself fortunate that you, Monsieur Marceau, were not also attacked by him. Him? Do you mean Fabrice? But he was with me all night. Marceau, feigning surprise, went on. I do not count myself fortunate, Atlas. My precious Rosalie is dead, sir. I fell from the chair to the floor with a thud. At the same time, Jacques struck his palm rigidly into his hands and cast a deranged look of anguish, or was it pride, onto my face. What am I to do, Atlas? Do you think we have captured the vampire? He asked. We have, sir. On Atlas's last words, I began to fade out, but I tried to fight whatever toxin had paralyzed me. It was in vain. I thought, maniacs, all of them, as I willed myself again to rise and run from this horrible room and this crazed man and his henchmen. Shockingly, my wife, I witnessed, was not coming to my defense. My precious Annette would not come near me. There was the wink again. To Marceau! In fact, was she smiling? And I croaked and passed out completely. Marceau Plantation, levee adjacent to Marceau Shipping on Mississippi River, 2200 p.m. Murder of suspect by Marigny mob. Police reports advised, unable to stop proceedings. Hang this fiend up higher. I don't want to miss the beast's heart. We'll stuff garlic in the head, the mouth, and stump of its neck to make sure he doesn't come back, bellowed Monsieur Jacques Marceau between torches and roaring fires on the banks of the levee. He went on barking. More sated holy water on him, Father Thomas. Rope his hands and legs to prevent him from flying off. Let there be no way he escapes us. Those words and yells woke me. I was waking to a demoniacal event that even Dante Alighieri couldn't have envisioned. I awoke in a torturous, living hell on earth. I'd been scourged and beaten while unconscious. Ropes had been attached to a mule, flung over the limbs of 500-year-old oaks, then tied around my neck to my hands and legs, splaying me in all directions. The more they pushed the mule to tighten the rope, the further my neck and extremities were pulled. As the ropes ever tightened and stretched me, I felt agonizing torn muscles, dislocated joints, and ropes burned into my skin. The real horror lay in the macabre visage of one of Marceau's cruelest jests. In one of their pulls of the ropes, I glimpsed for a moment Rosalie's mutilated body. Her corpse lay at my feet. As I hung, dripping blood and sweat and flesh. Her waxen head decapitated and stuffed with garlic and crucifixes lay next to her hacked off limbs. Marceau screamed, a maniacal roar as he pointed. This beast took my precious Rosalie, my wife, the only thing I ever cherished in this world. This vampire's own wife claims he tried to corrupt her. I caught sight on Annette Fauché, my bride, my wife of 5 years, one who was timid and afraid of the dark. She spat on me, then spoke. He is the vile devil's son, my husband. I never knew him. He has left me in the night to conspire with witches and the undead. Now I know Fabrice consorts with the night things. She continued spitting and spewing her poisonous lies. He tried to tempt my soul and bring me to his damnation. Thank God I refused. I saw her, mouthed secretive words to Jacques in agreement. It broke my heart. We have seen what this monster here has done to our Marigny. We have seen how Fabrice Fauché and his vampires slaughter our innocent. I have seen it, said Atlas next to Marceau. How many of these vile monsters have I slain myself? I know not. From Romania on to the swamps of Louisiana, I cannot say accurately, but I know what works on them. He grabbed a large spear of ash, to my horror, then continued. Pull the ropes tight and put the vampire over the flames. The stake. But he is suspended. Jacques looked beyond revulsion and disgust to Rosalie's body. Then he cast his eyes up onto me. He had the sneer again. Atlas nodded slowly. Like I've said, Monsieur Marceau, I've had experience with these beasts. My stake will hit the heart. The townsfolk, at first glance, had been a jeering, cursing mob. Now, under Marceau's control, they quieted as Jacques Marceau ushered them to calm. The Marigny mob followed Marceau's lead and genuflected, then bowed their heads. Marceau took an impassioned sigh. Then, as he said reverently, "Let us pray. May God have mercy on Rosalie's soul. We pray that he gives us the courage to put Fabrice Fauché, vampire, to rest as well," he said. I saw a brief nod from Annette to Jacques and understood. Are you really going to? I screamed in absolute hard agony. Something broke in my heart. Before she finished the question to Jacques, I felt a blistering hot fire scorched into my heart. I heard ribs crack and flesh tear in the same instance. Atlas had speared a sharpened ash stake into my chest, my ribs, and into my heart. In a toneless, dying murmur, I said, "Why?" Marceau Plantation, levee adjacent to Marceau Shipping on Mississippi River. 22:30 p.m. Strange reports at levee and in Marigny. A shredded diary of local priests found attached to unknown severed hand. 2 local townsmen with Atlas still holding the spear into my heart brought my body down. My heartbeat, a chaotic mash from the splintered wood and bone. I wasn't dying. I was dead from the start, being staked. In those throes of certain death, Marceau bent over to whisper in my ear as everyone grew silent. "Thank you for your sacrifice, Fabrice. I'll take care of your wife." I heard the last as a vile taunt and saw the hideous smirk. I need to pause just a moment again to look at that scar and remember. As I look on there's the whistle of wind outside my frosted cabin now. I hear the sway of iced hickory, maple, and oak. I smell the scent of pine and blue spruce as I look at that old scar from being staked. And I now smell something else on the wind, too. How did I survive such an injury? I know you may be confused at this point. How did I survive with barely a scar? How did I come to write these words after my untimely demise? Was I truly a vampire? The answer to the last question is obviously no. What happened occurred rapidly. My body was spit on and kicked by the Marigny crowd. Even in death, someone screamed, possibly Annette, "Vampire, you will never attack us again!" As she too continued the kicks and spitting. No, devilishly I heard Marceau, "We have staked the beast. The vampire has been vanquished. Now off with the scoundrel's head." His bloodlust was at a fever pitch. Then I pulled the stake from out of my chest, threw it into the nearby fire, and stood up. Men, women, and children screamed in terror and fled. 2 old men were trampled to death by the crowd, and a horse that broke free. A woman fainted. And one thing was certain: everyone ran from me. Annette went wide-eyed, as Rosalie had once done, thinking a vampire was hunting her. And sadly, the real monster, Rosalie's vampire, was her beloved Jacques Marceau. And, I guess in a similar fashion, I was now, coincidentally, Annette's. I looked on amused as she ran, then fell, then ran again toward the plantation, leaving Marceau alone. I saw as she had a look of guilt and pain across her sallow features. My ears flattened as I heard her running and screaming, "Please have mercy, Fabrice! Please, I beg you! I don't want to die," she said. "Please don't kill us, Fabrice!" Arrogant, condescending, and unrepentant. "You won't kill her, or me, fiend!" Marceau commanded and directed a stunned Atlas to attack. Rallying his troops, Jacques practically had to push the big man to confront me. "Shoot and kill him, Atlas. I'll double what I was going to pay you. Then bring me Fabrice Fauchet's head." Marceau Plantation. Levee, adjacent to Marceau Shipping on Mississippi River. 2300 p.m. From reports, gunfire heard in the Marigny. Police unable to apprehend due to fog. People injured from an alligator. Marceau pointed and directed 2 other henchmen with guns as well. Firing Winchester rifles, their bullets had no effect. They weren't blessed or of silver to do any good. I even told them this as I flipped my rear paw, ripping the head off one man while simultaneously I tore the others off with my teeth. Screaming, the Cajun youth ran off spurting blood from his amputated stump. The man fell over and splashed and sizzled the bonfires with his blood, then ran off into the night dying. Then it was Atlas's turn. Atlas's knife could have presented a problem. Luckily, I stopped his attack by stalling the knife's hilt with my clawed hand. He screamed into my face his warrior's yell, knowing all hope was lost. I tossed him over into the henchman, not yet wanting to kill him. I wanted Atlas Morange out of his mind with terror before I killed him. Jacques Morceau, in the orange flickering flame darkness, could not see the casualties I'd inflicted on his protectors. How could he envision them in the blackest night with human eyes? Arrogant and ever condescending, he was like Custer at the Little Bighorn. What likelihood could he ever fathom that his little band of henchmen would ever be triumphant over a loup-garou, over me? In his stupidity, he was already calling out to Annette to come witness his victory over the monster. Yes, Jacques Marceau had to show he had control over Annette to the end. He had my wife come back and witness the slaying of me for good. Come back, dear, I promise you. This monster shall be destroyed. Annette stopped her run to the plantation. She paused, then turned slowly to smile toward Morceau in relief. All I could later think, to my disgust, was she had to suffer from something. Insanity, most likely. More nefariously, Annette lusted for my torture, my death, my blood, real vampirism. Annette Fauché stopped with insidious glee, then turned back in my direction to see me killed. Fortunately for her, I had a change of heart. She spasmodically shuddered, then feebly whimpered as she saw the real me and screamed, pleading for mercy to me out in the darkness. I heard her dejected say, "We are doomed, Jacques. There will be no forgiveness for God or for Brice," with a murmured gasp realization. Monsieur Jacques Morceau rebuked her. "There's always a way, stupid woman," he answered. He saw as Atlas tried to follow me and aim his pistol through phantom fog banks. He fired his gun uselessly several times. Finally, I came through the mist and tore out the large man's heart in front of them. Howling in victory, I flattened my ears, snarled at them, then slowly ate the man's beating heart. Fog continued to roll in off the Mississippi River. Around us, fires raged in the darkness. I used the fog and the darkness to cloak myself, circling the next prey. As I made one of several growls and circled Jacques Morceau, the maniac, cold and heavy mist circled us and enveloped around the levee, ships, and the plantation house. In the fog, I snarled through canine teeth, "Why did you kill her?" Morceau fired a pistol in my direction. I snarled on the backside of Jacques, just in the recesses of mist, "Why kill your wife? Why take mine?" Again he fired in a miss. Does there ever have to be a reason, Fabrice? Not that you are of my class or of my station. There is no why, Monsieur Fauché. "Do as thy will" is my motto. You were just in the way. He villainously laughed. Can we forget all that staking stuff and be friends again? Morceau was taunting me in the fog. Obviously, for a better shot. "Why Did the man not register his folly? Why could he not comprehend what was occurring? How the tables were turned? But in my long lifetime, arrogant men like him never did bend their knee to humility. He nodded slowly to himself and shrugged with a laugh. Okay. Final answer, Fabrice. He fired 3 more shots randomly, almost killing Annette. I grew bored. Is that what you wanted to hear? A rich man like me grew tired of the trappings of his idiot wife. He continued with his taunts as I circled and he reloaded. You seemed oblivious to your gift over there. You were so naive, Fabrice, too eager to please and serve your master. Neglected Annette, if you will, trying to be my best servant. You are such a fool, Fabrice. I smelled deceit and jealousy on him again now. I mistakenly, in my wolfish anger, threw a corpse at him in one of my growling rages. Another dead body was tossed. Marceau found something useful when I threw the 3rd corpse, Atlas, to him. Something that might hurt me. A silver knife. It won't work, Jacques. I already smell your intent. I lumbered out of the fog. Jacques Marceau saw my smoldering red canine eyes flicker with the flames of the bonfires. I saw the horrified malevolence in his. He thought, as so many of his ilk, I can kill this beast. This monster will be killed by me. Patiently, the former Civil War cavalryman sat there, waiting. I lurched a little, closer, watching with wolfish eyes his rapid, fogging breath, as I built his dread to terrific panic, as he had done to poor Rosalie Marceau. I circled around him in the fog. I howled, smelling the discharge from him, the body fluids in palpable, horrified agitation. As I drifted in and between firelight and fog, frightening the fool, I saw stars were being blotted out by rising tendrils of vapor. I heard trees swaying ever gently in the cool night breeze, stirring my coat of gray fur. I bristled and shook off early dew as I made my prey wait a little longer for a horrific death. I howled one more roar, then flattened my ears back and made a slow stride for the kill. Some of the earlier fires were dwindling. Darkness with rays of moonlight were encroaching. He jested. Where on earth are all my friends of the district? Asked Marceau. Fabrice! Are you still Fabrice, my friend? Yes, in some ways better. For you, far worse, friend, I growled. Marceau, screeching insanely, said, Well, no need to be rude, I swear. I didn't see a soul as I rode in. He laughed as a maniac and continued, They are huddling, terror-stricken, in their houses from the vampire. The lunatic continued, Fabrice, I must say I didn't see this coming. I just wanted to have some fun, that's all. Am I any different than the servants you just devoured? I heard the creak of his grip on the knife. It wouldn't be long now. I realized as he was speaking, Marceau was timing my strides, aiming for me probably with the knife. Look at this mess you left me fat. Jacques threw the silver knife with the precision of a trained man in the cavalry. Had I been human, his knife would have killed me most certainly. But I'm Luke Garou, werewolf. Oops, sorry Fabrice, I missed. I moved and locked my jaws around his neck as a wolf at play. I shook Jacques Marceau, hearing bones and sinew break and tear. Then I threw the horrible tasting man into one of the many bonfires still raging next to the Mississippi River. As I lumbered and lurched to kill Annette, I got a little pleasure hearing the vinegary, vile-tasting Jacques Marceau sizzle, singe, and scream in the fire. Annette gave off the gallows stare. Dear Fabrice, it all makes sense now. All the secrecy through the years. She cackled as a crone. And here I thought it was another woman. How wrong was I? You have no idea. I lowered my snout to smell the feast. I licked her living, terrified face one more time, and I dripped saliva onto her face as I grunted the words. For what it's worth, how glad I am to eat you. I heard her skull crack as I crushed it under my jaws. In between, I heard Annette's pig-like squeals. In the early hours, just before dawn, I howled a lonesome howl. My beast raged now with a fiery hate beyond any human comprehension. Demoniacal depravity had called from the shores of Erebus past its ghoul-guarded gateways of hell. Now unleashed, I had no control over its catastrophic carnage to the mob in the Marigny. The beast would have its pounds of flesh. The Marigny District, 1 a.m. Multiple reports found scattered at police station covered in large paw prints and blood. Only survivor found alive is a traumatized, amnesic man who was crying. He was covered in blood and mud with a healing wound to his chest. I ran those muddy streets and tore through house after house, savagely murdering all of them until sunrise. For the murderous mob of the Marigny District on that icy night, I became the breed of horror which cannot be impeded. For those that tortured and spat on me, I was, from what unholy place I do not know. Their murderous transgression to me unforgivable to the point I hunted the fools throughout the Louisiana countryside. I stalked, tracked, and trailed each one, paw by paw. I needed no shelter in a graveyard to hide as that undead corpse they claimed I was, nor did I need the crypt to hide from sun after I fed on each of them, for I lived amongst them, cloaked in human skin by day, and they all knew that I knew them. I instinctively knew my prey all too well. And by full moon, on the same night they had tortured and staked me, I continued killing those that fled. My bloodthirsty revenge never satisfied. I was their nightmare in living fur and flesh. Werewolf. But by the first rays of morning sun, however, despite surviving the vampire that had staked me, Monsieur Jacques Morceau, I found no respite in revenge and murder. In fact, in sadness and mourning, with the wolf back in its cage of human flesh, I sobbed and fell to my human knees with profound sorrow and regret. I lay there in the cold mud and colder congealed pools of blood in a ghost town of my dead. No howl could release that pain. December 7th, 1892. Back in the present, in a remote cabin on Mount Bluff, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. 12 a.m. Midnight on the mountain. Now, as the snow falls on Bluff Mountain, I'm an old wolf, a more forgiving soul, a creature back at peace again with the Marini, for now. Give me the serene beauty of nature and not the scum and bums of a city. I will forever live and crave the peaceful creak and sway of old trees, playing in the silver illumination of moonlit forest, standing on a mountain's peak, feeling the frigid blast of winter wind on my fur. And, of course, the taste of great prey. The leprous moon was gibbous again, since the snowstorm has slowed a bit on Bluff Mountain. I'm bristling my coat now in the moonlight, walking amongst the blue spruce, feeling the roar of my inner wolf. Somewhere out in the forest gloom, I smell creatures coming out of the shadows. They smell as I do. They look as I do, but they are not me. These werewolves are my pack. My pack has come to join me in the silver and white solitude. I feel pride and chills go up my spine as I hear my pack's joyous howls in the glorious moon. Heart-filled howls carried across miles of mountains on the icy cold wind. The snow continues to fall in drifts around my cabin on the mountain. It'll be a long winter, but I won't be alone. This old wolf, long in the tooth, won't freeze after all. Like I said, I don't remember much these days, as I'm old. But I do remember the bite of that ice storm in 1866. And the blood. Oh, how I remember the blood. Thank you for listening. Have a great night.